Hello. Hello, guys. It's Wednesday, and here in Southern California, we're experiencing some really bad fires. The smoke in the area where I am, I'm not very extremely close to the fires, but they are all around, and the smoke is thick. I have a little bit of a sore throat because even indoors, the smoke just gets in. And of course, you go out sometimes. It's really quite devastating. And I was thinking about hijacking this show and doing some healing on the situation. But I talked with the higher selves this morning, and they said it would be best for me to do the two shows on the Evolutionary Thrust, which I'm going to be doing. So, because then what they have to say and how they're going to, what they're going to share about the fire situation or any kind of natural disaster is going to have context. Which brings me to the idea that the information that I share, this higher self information, guys, if you haven't figured it out already, and I'm pretty sure you have, it builds on itself. It's like any other kind of philosophy or study. If you want to learn division, you kind of want to know multiplication first, because you can't jump into division and really make sense of it without understanding what multiplication is. So it's kind of like that. It's a big, huge body of information and knowledge and tools and techniques, a lot of stuff that I want to share with you and will be sharing with you and have been sharing on my other shows. I mean, I haven't been doing the video for very long, but I want to really encourage you to go back to the start of the shows to either review or to catch up. So if you come in randomly and kind of interest you, I mean, obviously don't do that if you're not interested, but if it kind of interests you, go back. And I would start, for the audio people, you might just start at the first audio show. I mean, I have shows that started back, the first video show, I'm sorry, guys. I have shows that started back 2011, and so, hey, I wouldn't recommend you start back then, but you could start then. I know some people love those very early shows because you get a lot of meat about the basics. I have another starting point. You could start, and these are just the audio shows, the podcasts. You could start at the beginning of January in 2016, because that's when I began introducing the higher self information. Not the higher self information, the fifth dimensional information. But for those people watching the videos, my guess is you could just start with Series 1, Episode 1. I forget what day of the week it was, but if you're on YouTube, you'll find it. Anyway, I think you'll see that I have a chart here. This chart, I'm not positive, can be read. Maybe not from a phone, but maybe from an iPad or some sort of computer. I'm guessing that it can be read, but I'll be talking about it later. But I'm just giving it a try. It's exciting for the people who are on the audio and only listen to the podcast. I have to apologize because you won't see the visual aid, but I'm actually excited to be able to share these visual aids. I don't have a ton of them, but every once in a while I'm going to stick one up here. It's fun to see it, but I will, for the people listening, listening only, I will explain it as best I can. It's a chart, and it's called The Framework of the Universe. Yeah. And today I'm going to be talking about some kind of out there esoteric kind of stuff, but it's all very logical and very practical, and I think you'll be able to follow it. I have a ton of analogies planned for today. So anyway, do try to catch up if you can, because the information builds. Like this week, I'm going to be doing, 2 weeks I'll be doing the Evolutionary Thrust. This week is the basics. What is it exactly? And then next week, I'm going to be doing how it affects us. What about it is really would be helpful for us to know and utilize in our own process and the insights it gives us. It's going to be interesting. It'll answer some questions for sure. Anyway, again, this is higher self information. It doesn't necessarily make it right or wrong. I ask that we just stand in the center of neutrality and hear what I have to say. And if you resonate with it, great. If not, it's okay. I'm not here to ram it down anyone's throat. But it's helped me so much in my life, which you know, because if you've heard the 3 result shows, it's just, I really feel it important to share the information. And for those who it helps or they're interested in it, great. So, if I can help one person kind of thing. Okay, so the evolutionary movement or evolutionary frequency in the last 2,000 years has been building, and it's the equivalent of 10,000 evolutionary frequency years. So in the last 2,000 years, it's as if evolutionarily we've gone 10,000 years. The next 2,000 years, it's going to be as if we've gone 100,000 years. Okay? So there is a buildup in evolutionary frequency, not just on this planet, guys, in the entirety of the universe, known and unknown. And most of it is unknown, and I will get to that in a bit. Okay, so why is this evolutionary speed up happening? Well, I'm going to tell you. It's because the originating source itself is gearing up, speeding up to make its own giant leap forward in evolution. Yeah, I know. I can just hear, because I know when I heard this information, I did the same thing. I'm like, what? The originating source evolves? And so I'm sure there's some of you out there that might be feeling that way. And yes, it's absolutely true. And so let me just go over, I know I've talked to you in one of the prior shows about the pure soul essence, and that's that divine part that we all carry, that's everything that the originating source was, is, and is becoming. And every single soul, from the moment it's birthed as a mineral, because that's where we all start, guys, every single soul carries that pure soul essence 24/7 for the totality of its journey, and the evolutionary journey actually never ends. And so I'm going to get to that in a sec. So let me just review. Remember, I think I gave the analogy that the pure soul essence is like the DNA that we carry. 2 parents give us DNA, and each cell in the body carries the full double helix, whether the cell is a blood cell or a bone cell or a brain cell or whatever. And the totality of the physical body is the manifestation of that DNA. Okay? Well, in the same way, every single soul carries the pure soul essence, which is the symbolic DNA from the parent, in quotes, the originating source that gave birth to us. And so the totality of all souls everywhere, known and unknown, and there's an infinite to the infinite power of souls that are unknown, okay? So we're just a little teeny weeny drop in the universe. Okay, so what happens is that this pure soul essence connects us to the originating source. So we are always getting feedback from the originating source. But in addition to that, every single soul is feeding the originating source along the same line. Every soul from that pure soul essence level is giving back every experience, every feeling, every belief, every emotion, everything it learns, all the insight, everything. And I don't mean just humanity. I'm talking about all souls. That means minerals, plants, animals, humans, 5th dimensional, 6th dimensional, 7th dimensional, which is bringing me to this chart, but not quite yet. But we're all feeding the originating source. So there's these billions and trillions and cadillions of souls to the billions and trillions and cadillions and infinite power all around the universe, known and unknown, that is giving this feedback to the originating source. Now, you think, well, what can the originating source learn from plants and animals and stuff? But it isn't just plants and animals and humans and minerals and things. Let me do the chart now, okay? So this is the framework of the universe. And if we start at the bottom here, you can see that it's the first dimension, or the first kingdom is the mineral kingdom. Then we go to the plant. Then we go to the animal kingdom. That's the 3rd dimension. The 4th dimension is the human kingdom, and the other side of the veil is heaven. So don't be confused that heaven is part of the human kingdom. So when we get to the originating source, we aren't getting to heaven. Heaven is a phase or a part of the journey that all souls go, it is included with the human experience and the human journey. That's what my second book is about the journey through the human kingdom universe, and it's called Soul Psychology. And it talks a lot about that. But anyway, then we have the fifth dimension, which is the interplanetary kingdom. I keep pushing this. The sixth dimension is the spiritual hierarchy. So souls evolve as their frequency level increases. They go higher and higher and higher. Eventually they go into the seventh dimension, which is the highest frequency in this universe. Okay? Then the eighth and ninth dimension are incubatory levels to prepare the souls to move back to the originating source. So that's in general. So you have all the souls moving through all these dimensions are giving feedback through the pure soul essence to the originating source. Okay? But evolution never ends. Never ends, guys. So just because we return to the originating source, which again is not heaven, because the originating source, we're all a part of originating source, and it doesn't have its beingness or its place in any one of the kingdoms, because all of the kingdoms are part of it. All of the souls manifest the body of, or the pure soul essence of originating source, just like all of our cells create our body, which is a manifestation of the full double helix that we inherited. So all souls make up the body of originating source. We're all one. We're all part of the whole. So, but when we get to the originating source, we don't stop there. And this next part is a little bit hard to explain, but I want you to imagine that this universe, let's forget about the eighth and ninth level. This universe that we're familiar with, even though we are pretty much, we only understand maybe from here down, from the fourth dimension or the human dimension down. But in any case, when a soul, let's just look at the seven dimensions, okay? You can relate the seven dimensions to piano. The first seven notes of a piano begin with A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Forget about the black notes, okay? This is an analogy. It's not perfect. But let's just do the A through G. That's a scale, one scale on the piano. And the first one on the piano, the frequency is really low, right? It's very, very dense, very, very low, low, low frequency. After you get to G on the piano, you start a new scale. You start a new A. Now the A on the new scale is the same note as the first A, it's just a higher frequency. It's a higher frequency note. It's actually higher than the first A through G. It's a higher frequency than the G even. So the second scale, you go A through G, and it's a higher frequency than the first scale, et cetera, et cetera. You move to the next scale on the piano, and the letter A, or the note, I keep saying letter, but you know what I mean, note A is again the same note as the other two A's, but at an even higher frequency. And so you proceed up to, to get to the end of the piano. So this framework, the first through seventh dimension, is when you go back to the originating source, you get expressed out again into the next higher scale of universe. Now, we can't see it, we don't know about it in scientifically, but this is just the way the higher selves explained, and they call it an outer reality. So when you move back, you move up, you get to the originating source, then you get prepped, and you go out, you're expressed again to the next higher scale. So you have a mineral kingdom, you have a plant kingdom, an animal kingdom, etc., but they're much higher frequency than the mineral, plant, and animal kingdom, etc., in our universe. As a matter of fact, the mineral kingdom in the first outer reality is higher frequency even than the seventh dimension here, okay? Just like it is on the piano. And so what happens is the souls evolve in that next higher scale. They return to the originating source, and they get expressed outward again to the next outer reality, or to then the third higher evolutionary universe. We're talking eons of time, guys. I mean, we can't fathom the amount of time. Our universe, the known universe that we are in, we're the most recent universe. This process has been ongoing to the point there are already 4 outer realities, and we know how long it takes to evolve through our universe. I really don't know about timing in those outer realities, but it's probably infinite eons for each one. So we're talking about this process is ongoing, and it never stops. So anyway, the fact of the matter is that all those souls, not only in the higher frequencies in our known area, this lower, most recent universe, but in all those outer universes, or higher scale universes, I don't know how you'd like to think about it, all of those souls are feeding back to the originating source too. All their experiences, knowledge, insights, learning, abilities, I don't know, everything. So, with all this feedback, the originating source itself is learning and experiencing and growing. Learning and growing through the experiencing of its many, many cadillions of souls. I know cadillion isn't a word, so don't think I think it is. It's just trying to give you the idea that it's the billions. The number is just outrageously big. You know, we can't hold it in our consciousness. Anyway, so we're all feeding the originating source, which means it's speeding up its frequency. It's getting ready to make a giant leap forward. Now, this is not its first one. Let me be really clear on this. They've been fairly regular over the eons of time that we're talking about in the universe. But this originating source is gearing up to take a giant leap forward. And it's in the gearing up. It is speeding up, and it creates what the higher selves call the evolutionary thrust. Now, let me give you an analogy. If there's a long jumper, you know, long jump you see in the Olympics and track and field events, there's a big pit of sand, right? And the jumper starts way back, and then it's the person who's doing the jumping starts at a standstill and then starts to run down the long track and builds up the speed, going faster and faster and faster and faster and faster. And then it gets to the place where it takes that huge jump. This is a silly analogy maybe, but pretty clearly what is happening. The originating source is gaining speed in preparation for the evolutionary leap forward. So now when the long jumper goes, when he starts to run, does he drop a hand here or some hair out of here or his ear there? Or does the whole body go with him as he's running? Well, silly question, right? Of course the whole body goes with him. So when he takes a giant leap forward, he takes the whole body. So all the cells are gearing up and keeping, moving up in speed along with the jumper. Now I know that seems really sort of simplistic, but it's very important that you understand that the same thing is happening with all of the souls that are part of all there is. There isn't a soul. There are no souls at whatever level that isn't moving through this gigantic speed up, this energetic movement forward, this building up of speed, so that all of us, every single soul at every level, will be taking that giant leap forward because we're all part of the originating source. No soul gets left behind. None. None. So, so this momentum is building. It's growing. It's going. It's moving. And as you probably can tell from my first statement about how the last 2,000 years, the evolutionary speed up has been as if 10,000 years went by. And the next 2,000 years, it's going to be as if 100,000 years of evolutionary time will have gone by. That's because of the speeding up. As you can tell, it's not arithmetic. It's not one step and then another step and just slowly increasing in speed. It's exponential or geometric. I'm sort of not sure which one is the better analogy, but it's just expanding. It's kind of like, anyway, you know what I mean. It's building, speed really fast. And it's pretty clear that it's really, there's been a lot of speed up. I mean, if you look at the last 50 years, look at the technology. And technology is at the human level symbolically analogous to the change in body shape that you have in the animal kingdom or the plant or the mineral kingdom that shows the evolutionary speed up. So let me explain that a little bit. If you, each kingdom, and I can't remember if I said this in an early show, has 7 levels within it. And they all also have the 8th and 9th, which are the incubatory levels to prepare the soul to move into the next dimension. So, and within the levels, the 7 levels, there are other levels. So you can see that there's an evolutionary speed up in frequency just by looking at some of these kingdoms. I mean, if you look at the mineral kingdom, we don't see the evolution happening in the mineral kingdom. It seems bizarre to even think that minerals evolve, but if you look at it, there's different types of minerals. We have, basalt and feldspar and some fairly dense kind of souls in the mineral kingdom. And then we have things like crystals, gemstones, the pure metals like gold and silver and things like that. I don't know everything. I don't know exactly what's higher than something else, but there's a difference in frequency level between a crystal and basalt. And that's, even though, the mineral kingdom moves so slowly, it's as if it's standing still. It's hard to see that there's evolution in the mineral kingdom, but there is. Now, in the plant kingdom, it gets a little easier to see the different levels. I mean, we have very simple plants like simple algae or simple grasses, and then we have beautiful trees that bear fruit and flowers or vegetables. We have a lot more complex type plants. And so in the plant and the mineral kingdom and in the animal kingdom, it's the same. The change in frequency is reflected in the body of the soul. So in the animal kingdom, we have the amoebas way down, some very simple animals, coral, sponges. Then we have maybe fish, reptiles, amphibians, birds. Then we get into the mammals, the apes, etc. And so there's also clearly a dog is more evolved than an amoeba. Now, I can't say for sure which animal is at what level exactly, but because I haven't been given that information. But I haven't asked because it's not important to know that exactly, but just to understand that there are different levels. There are different levels within each of these kingdoms. And when you get to the human kingdom, and after the very early days when we were Neanderthal or, some sort of very caveman-like human stage, once we became Homo sapiens sapiens, basically the physical body doesn't change, but what changes is the technology. You know, you go from rocks and spears to bows and arrows to, you know, whatever simple weapons to the kind of weapons we have now, the kind of technology that we have now, the kind of tools we have now. And the last 50 to, 75 years, it's just been like, shoo. And we all know that you can't have any piece of technology for more than a couple, 3 years, and it's become, archaic or, ancient. It's ready to be called an antique. So that's really reflective. The technology is reflective of the evolutionary movement forward, this evolutionary thrust that's happening. Now, what it does is and I'm going to get into this a lot more next week, but what it does is it speeds up the evolutionary process for all the souls. So something that might have taken a soul 10 or 50 years before the evolutionary thrust maybe will only take it 6 months to a year, or even 1 month, depending. I mean, it would be all depending. Every soul is uniquely different. So it speeds up the evolutionary process. Now, when you're talking about, well, specifically, let's talk about the human level. We can't avoid anything. We have to move through the evolutionary process. Now, fifth dimensionals that are here carrying the dual soul nature, we've already evolved past human. So I'm talking about the humanities here, but it affects us too, and I'll get into that next week. The slight difference there is between those of us who are carrying the dual soul nature and those that are still strictly human. Doesn't really matter because it has a big effect on both of us in fairly similar ways. But what happens is it steps up the timing. So you can't avoid the learning or the growing or the balancing or the clearing. You can't avoid that. But instead of doing it, as I said, slowly over time, it's like it's telescoped and you have one thing after another. You have things coming in, one thing on top of another. And sometimes we barely get a rest, and there's more that comes up that we need to become aware of and clear. So we're about the end of the show, so I just wanted to say there's going to be more on the effects of this evolutionary thrust. Very important to understand better how it affects us, because you're going to look at what's going on in the environment in a big different way, not only in the natural disaster type environment. That part we will carry specifically, we will discuss specifically week after next, but in all environments, you're going to start to understand what's going on around the world in a lot of ways. So, because it has an effect on everything. And we are all individual souls going through the process, the speed up, the telescoping, the timing. It's just pushing us all along. The good news is that this evolutionary thrust, in fact, is like wind at our backs. So many of us want to be somewhere yesterday. We don't want to wait for all the steps and all the time, and we're sort of often living for the future. Well, the good news is this evolutionary thrust is wind at our backs. It is helping us move along faster and faster. So, and if we cooperate with it, which I will talk about next week, it happens even faster. It's going to take us along. It's moving us along no matter what. But having it in consciousness and cooperating with the movement is a fabulous way that we can help ourselves. It's really fabulous. So, and it speeds everything up. Okay, so we're getting to the end, and I want to say thank you so much, everyone, for the Wednesday. I hope you have another next week. This coming week is great, and I hope you can read the chart, and I hope you understood that evolution never ends. And that the originating source is in an evolutionary thrust, It is building up its speed, preparing to make a giant leap forward, and the reality that all of us will experience is that we are experiencing is changing faster and faster and faster in the moment. And when their leap happens, none of us will recognize the reality, because with a leap, no souls have been where we're going. Every single soul is moving, literally racing to keep up with this evolutionary thrust. And again, I will talk about it next week. Okay, so with that, I'm going to end the show. So thank you so much. I'll see you next week.